Welcome into the Steelers Talk live show. I am your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you to everybody joining us here a little bit earlier than we usually go live. We usually go live at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, but today we decided to go a half hour earlier because we've got a jam-packed show for you guys. 4 Steelers Talk segments are coming your way here over the next hour and a half or so. First up, we got the latest news and rumors. We got a new slate of top 30 draft visits for the Pittsburgh Steelers today with some very high-end draft prospects. Then we'll go into my theory surrounding the day that Aaron Rodgers is going to make his decision official and become the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then we'll get into some NFL drafts, some NFL mock drafts, and who the top NFL draft analysts are projecting to the Steelers in their latest mock drafts. And then, of course, I've got my latest Steelers mock draft. 7 rounds, no trades today. Total of 6 picks for the Pittsburgh Steelers in my Sperry mock 6.0. Thank you to everybody and all the real ones that are showing up at the beginning of today's show. And with that, let's bring on our producer for the day. Of course, Coop is still in London, so we've got Jack Squared today. Jack Lauderay is here, and we're in a studio where he has a producer mic. So, Jack, say what's up to Steelers Nation.
Yes, I actually get to talk today, which is
instead
dangerous.
Of just smiling and waving.
Which is dangerous. That's dangerous, but I'm happy to be here. Let's go Steelers.
By the way, he's wearing his Boston Red Sox hat instead of his Pirates hat today. Everyone boo Jack in the chat. Boo! Come on.
I don't.
Why, do you have a Pirates hat, right?
I don't have it accessible at the office.
Why don't you have it accessible? For every Skeens Day, you got to wear it.
I mean, baseball. We've been here. We haven't even had a week of baseball yet, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And your Red Sox are not doing too well right now.
They just took the series against the Orioles. They're one game below 500.
All right, one game below 500. All right, I guess they're turning it around.
They are. They're turning it around.
The Pirates, I wish I could say the same about the Pirates. The Pirates stink. But if you guys want to get the chat going right now, this is the first topic we're going to discuss on today's show. Will Aaron Rodgers be a Steeler by this time next week? Because as we're going to talk about in my Aaron Rodgers segment today, we're starting to, lose reasonings why Aaron Rodgers is taking so long with this decision. It certainly seems like all the things are pointing to Aaron Rodgers coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers, working out with Steelers players, being in communication with Steelers players, having ongoing conversations with the team, initiated a 6-hour visit. It just seems like everything indicates that he's interested in the Steelers, but we still don't have a decision. And I think if we don't have a decision by this time next week, specifically next Thursday, and we'll talk about why next Thursday is a very important date when it comes to the Rodgers saga. But if Rodgers isn't here by next Thursday, I think it's officially panic time when it comes to Rodgers' prospects of being this team's starting quarterback next year. Got the first super chat of the day coming in from my man John Masood. He says, Jack Sperry, Cassie, Voth, and Coop. But Coop is in London. It is actually Jack Lauderay today, Mr. Masood. Yeah, oops, double Jack today. So, John, appreciate the $10 super chat, my friend. He's always putting in that $10 to kick off every single show. What's up, Jack?
Just for everybody, it's going to be Jack Squared again on Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be Jack Squared again for probably the next 2 Steelers. Or is it just one?
Jack Squared on Monday, Jack Sperry and Reed on Thursday.
We got Reed on Thursday.
I think.
First time ever on Steelers Talk it'd be for him. So, all right, so we got Jack for at least this live show and then next Monday as well. And hopefully we get a decision on Aaron Rodgers here soon. Now, before we get into our first segment of today's show, guys, if you have a Steelers topic that you want us to discuss or address, if you have an opinion opinion about something that we're talking about on today's show that you want me to address, you guys can donate to the show via Super Chat. We'll put you up on screen. We'll talk about whatever Steelers topic you want. It can be any dollar amount, guys. It can be $2, $5, $10. Doesn't matter. As long as you are donating to the channel, we are going to put you up on screen and we're going to talk about whatever topic you want to talk about. Also, we are going to be doing a Steelers jersey raffle whenever the Aaron Rodgers decision does come down. If it comes down today, or if it comes down whenever and it's the Steelers, then we will be giving away an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey on the show. It's $20 to enter that, and then if you guys use Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal, you guys will actually get an additional raffle ticket. And the reason why we give out extra raffle tickets to people that Venmo, Cashapp, and PayPal is because we get to keep more of the proceeds. YouTube takes a 30% cut of every single super chat you guys send in, but with Venmo, Cashapp, and PayPal, we get to keep more of the proceeds. So if you're going to be helping us out by sending in Venmos, Cash Apps, and PayPals, we're going to help you out and get you an extra raffle ticket to win that Steelers jersey whenever the Rodgers decision eventually comes. And also, if we get to $100 total today, Jack and I will stay live for an extra 15 minutes to talk Steelers football with you guys. So if you guys want to get those super chats in, I think we made almost $200 on Monday's show. So that was a really, really good show. If we can get another 100 today, we'll stay live an extra 15 minutes to talk Steelers football to get your Thursday evening started off right. Now, before we get into our first segment today, I want to see all the real ones that are in the chat. Spam those me's if you are a real one and you have already clicked that thumbs up icon. We got over 200 people watching live, but only 37 likes. We got to get this up to 50 likes at least before we get into our first segment. So we got Donald Jr., we got David, we got Pizza is Goated, we got Brock Walker, we got Christian Andujar. We got David, we got Jordan, we got Jason, we got Nicholas, we got David, Chris, DJ KJ, Nicholas, Kennedy, we got Jason, Otis, we got Zaneta, we got Damian Roy. What's up, Damian? Good to see you. We got Fisher Productions, Greg Bryant, Cassie Voth, my girlfriend, of course, is here. Everyone say hi to Cassie in the chat. We've got our first Cash App of the day here, Jack. I'll send this your way. And we can hit this one before we get into our first segment of the afternoon. We've got Tony, we've got Noah, we've got Andrew, Kevin Crable, we've got a Christian Andujar, we got Justin Yankuski coming in with a $5 super chat. Kermit is my God is here. 1.0 is here. Noah Bailey is here. Got a good crew of Steelers fans here. And Stacy Beard coming in with a $5 Cash App. And I do not see a message attached to that. So, Stacy, thank you for the $5. We greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much for the donation. And then speaking of $5, we just got a $5 super chat from my man Justin Yankuski, who says, if the Steelers do move on next year, if we stink, who would be your top 3 head coaches? Well, it kind of depends on, who gets fired, how certain coordinators do in the NFL this upcoming year. So I think it's a little early for this question, Justin, but one of the people definitely on my short list will be Brian Flores. He was my number 1 offensive coordinator or he's my number 1 head coach candidate when we did a Mike Tomlin replacements video after we lost in the playoffs this year. And the reason for that is that you need to have somebody, it's a defensive head coach tradition here in Pittsburgh, so they would be keeping that alive, but also you need somebody with the charisma to fill the shoes of Mike Tomlin. Now, I don't think anybody and any coach, you can make an argument, is as charismatic as Coach T is, all right? Like that guy commands a locker room better than just about anybody in the sport. But, so because of that, you need somebody with a big personality. Brian Flores certainly fits that. Of course, he has established relationships with a lot of the people in the Steelers locker room already because he coached here for a year and he has a lot of respect from the players in this locker room. Also, he's a brilliant defensive mind. I think he's actually a superior defensive mind to Mike Tomlin, if I'm being completely honest with you, in terms of the schematics of it. And then he has connections now to the Sean McVay tree working for Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. So you could bring in a hotshot, young offensive play caller like Josh McCown. They've got a lot of people in that tree that he's got connections with there in Minnesota. So I think Brian Flores would be the best possible fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers as their next head coach if they do move on from Mike Tomlin next year. All right, let's get into our first segment right now. Also, we just got a Cash App here, so I will actually send this to Jack. We'll hit this right before we get into our first segment. There we go. But coming up here, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have my theory on why Aaron Rodgers has not made his decision yet. Then we'll talk about the NFL mock draft roundup, kind of breaking down who all the top NFL draft analysts are having and projecting to the Steelers in round one and in their latest mocks. And then I've got my latest mock draft here, 6 picks for the Pittsburgh Steelers in a 7-round mock draft. Quincy Miles coming in with a $1 Cash App, and he says, so what are the mocks looking like for Jackson Fats? I think that he means Jackson Dart. But, we'll talk a little bit about Jackson Dart today at some point during the show, so I'll keep you in suspense there, Quincy, but appreciate the $1 Cash App. Let's get into our first segment of the day, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. We got a bunch of great Steelers news and rumors to cover on today's program. First up, we're going to be talking about the 4 NFL draft prospects that the Pittsburgh Steelers hosted on Top 30 Visits earlier today. Then we'll talk about another quarterback target that the Steelers apparently pursued here that is now off the market. And we'll finish up today's show with Hard Knocks. Could the Steelers be on the HBO show once again here in 2025? Some new rules brought out from the National Football League certainly make it a possibility. Before we get into today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, guys, make sure you guys share today's video on your social media if you'd be so kind. We really do appreciate all of your guys' support, and it's word-of-mouth referrals like that that help us grow our audience. All right, so if you want to help us grow, you want to help us get to 100,000 subscribers, that's our goal by the end of the 2025 NFL season. You guys can click the share button below this video, select the X icon or whatever social media that you guys have. You can tag me in the post if you're posting it on X at Jack_Sperry, and I'll make sure to interact with that post if you do so, and then you send it. So we really do appreciate each and every one of you guys that shares today's video. Only the real ones will share it, so make sure, if you want to make sure you are a real one, click that share button and send that out. Okay, so now let's talk about the 4 draft prospects here that visited the Pittsburgh Steelers facility today. Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. Matthew Golden, the speedster wide receiver out of Texas, expected to go in round 1. Azariah Thomas, the cornerback out of Florida State, the long physical corner with excellent tape. And then you got Gavin Bartholomew, which is a local visit, so it doesn't count against the top 30 draft visits because he is from the University of Pittsburgh, but he is a tight end. So you take a look at the top 30 visits for the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least to this point. Tyler Shuck and Jackson Dart are the 2 quarterbacks that have visited the Steelers that we know of at this point. Caleb Johnson, DJ Giddens, Bashal Tootin, Dylan Sampson, Jaden Blue, and Ollie Gordon. 6 running backs have visited the Pittsburgh Steelers, so definitely seems like the Steelers are prioritizing that position this year. Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins, Savion Williams, Jalen Noel are the 4 wide receivers that have gotten top 30 visits that we know of. And then on defense, you got J.J. Pegues out of Ole Miss, a defensive tackle. Yaha Black, another defensive tackle out of Iowa. Joshua Farmer and Elijah Roberts, also interior defenders. Then Azariah Thomas is the lone corner that has gotten a top 30 visit to this point. So I want to talk about 2 players specifically that visited the Steelers today. The first one being Matthew Golden out of Texas. Now, we'll talk about him in just a second here, but first, I want to tell you guys about the players that have had a combine formal meeting and a top 30 visit. There's only 6 players that the Steelers met with formally at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis this year, and also invited on a top 30 visit. Jackson Dart is the only quarterback. Caleb Johnson, DJ Giddens, and Jaden Blue, also Ollie Gordon, 4 players at the running back position. So, like I said, Steelers are definitely doing their homework on this running back class. And then the only receiver to this point is Matthew Golden out of Texas. In fact, Matthew Golden is the only prospect in this entire class, at least so far, that has had a combine formal meeting, has had a top 30 visit, and had Steelers GM Omar Khan and Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin present at his pro day there in Austin at the University of Texas. So he is the only player at this point that could go in round 1 that has all 3 of those boxes checked. And listen, man, Golden is an awesome wide receiver prospect. He might end up being the first wide receiver taken. He ran a 4.29 40-yard dash time in Indianapolis at the Combine. That was the fastest among wide receivers. And he on tape, man, he's a great route runner. He can make great catches. He tracks the ball well down the field. He's going to be a really, really good player in this this league, man. And, he's going to be more of a true Z wide receiver. So if the Steelers take him, they're going to be slotting him in as kind of the route running type of threat at Z, while DK Metcalf is your true big body at X. But what I will say here, guys, is that if you draft Matthew Golden at number 21, that is if he makes it to you, I would say look out for a George Pickens trade. Probably at some time during day 2 of the NFL draft. My guess is they would like to recoup another day 2 draft pick, whether that be in round 2 or round 3. But if I'm being honest with you guys, if they're looking to trade George Pickens because of the acquisition cost of the team that is going to get him, because, I mean, let's face it, it's been well reported, the punctuality issues, the fighting issues, the effort issues, the stuff with George Pickens, that make him a little bit of a risk, along with the fact that you're going to have to pay him if you're a new team. I think that the Steelers would be lucky to get a 4th-round pick for him because of that acquisition cost, and it might be somewhere around a 5th or a 6th-round pick. And personally, there's no way in hell I'm trading George Pickens for that low of a price tag. And I think that at the end of the day here, I personally wouldn't take a wide receiver in round 1. I would rather just go with DK Metcalf and George Pickens moving forward here, guys. I would not want to trade George Pickens because I don't think the pick that you're going to get back for him is going to be worth drafting a receiver in round 1. I think Matthew Golden's a great player. I think he's going to make some team very, very happy, and the Steelers are definitely interested in him. They're showing a ton of interest in him right now. But personally, if I'm making the decision, I'm not taking a wide receiver in round 1, and I'm keeping George Pickens. So now let's shift our focus here to Caleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. And I would say right now, guys, don't be surprised if Pittsburgh trades down in round 1, somewhere towards the end of round 1, and then ends up taking Caleb Johnson with their selection again towards the end of the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. And the reason for that, guys, is I think he is a perfect fit for what Arthur Smith wants in his number 1 running back here in Pittsburgh. He's got great size. He's 6'1", 224 pounds. He's got pretty darn good long speed. Like on film, he is running away from people, which is something you really like to see, especially when he's he's putting his foot in the ground and he picks the right lane. And the thing about Caleb, guys, is that he picks the right lane to run through very consistently. Great vision, really good play strength because he's a bigger back with good speed. He is very difficult to bring down when he gets past the initial line to gain. And then also ball security. 0 fumbles for him at Iowa last year. That is something that Mike Tomlin, I think specifically, is going to particularly cherish. We know how much Mike Tomlin values the football. He likes quarterbacks that don't throw interceptions, and he likes running backs that don't fumble the football, and for good reason. He wants to win the turnover battle consistently. Caleb Johnson's a back that you can do that with. Some of the cons on his profile, though, is that he is scheme dependent, but the thing is, that's a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers because the scheme that they run, the outside zone type of stuff, is what Caleb Johnson needs to thrive at the next level, and I think that he is a perfect fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do. He wants to run a lot of wide zone, outside zone, that type of thing, and Johnson, to me, his best scheme fit is that kind of, put your foot in the ground, one cut, and run forward type of offense. And I think that he can be a true star in this league, in this style of offense. And he can be that bigger type of back that wears down an opposing defense, whereas Jaylen Warren can be that lightning kind of scat back almost, where he's the change-up and he's more of the shiftier back, the third down back, the receiving back, and Johnson can be your every down type of player. I think he's a perfect fit for what Pittsburgh is looking in their number 1 running back, and I would not count out the Steelers trading down and then taking Johnson at the tail end of round 1 just because he is such a perfect fit at the position, along with the fact that this team really needs a number 1 running back at this point in time. But I will also say running back is absolutely still a possibility in the middle round, specifically round 3 and round 4. You look at some of the other guys that they're talking to, Bashal Tootin, Jaden Blue, Ollie Gordon, a lot of these other running backs that are going to go in the middle rounds. So it's certainly possible that the Steelers go defensive tackle or corner or even quarterback maybe if they don't get Aaron Rodgers in the first round, and then they opt to go running back in either round 3 or round 4. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you be happy with a trade down and then taking Caleb Johnson at the end of round 1 to be this team's next number 1 running back? Type H if you would be happy with that, or type U if you would be unhappy with that result. Give me an answer down there for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a second, and also I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics today, let me know your answer to this question. for today's pin question. All right, now let's talk about Fanatics here, guys, where you guys can get the officially licensed Pittsburgh Steelers draft hat for the 2025 NFL Draft from our friends at Fanatics. When you go to chatsports.com/pit25 to get the official 2025 draft hat today, you got that gold brim with the leafing on there, the classic black and gold. I really like the simple design that they have for this year's draft. And then you also have this really nice off-white color type of design that you have, kind of old school looking, and then you got the gold leafing on the black brim. I think you can't go wrong with either one of these designs, but this one right here, the black one, is the one that you're going to see the draft picks this year wear on draft day. So go to chatsports.com/pit25 to get yourself a brand new NFL draft hat for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. So another quarterback that the Steelers could have potentially pursued is now off the board here, and the New England Patriots have traded Joe Milton to the Dallas Cowboys earlier today, and here was the compensation. It was Joe Milton in the 7th-round pick number 217 this year's NFL Draft, in exchange for a 5th-round pick, number 171st overall. So, of course, the Dallas Cowboys land Joe Milton, but then Jordan Schultz from Fox Sports reported that the Steelers were actually in on potentially trading for Joe Milton. Other teams that were interested were the Las Vegas Raiders, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, and then, of course, the Dallas Cowboys, who ended up landing the former Tennessee Volunteer. Now, I do believe that Pittsburgh was in on Milton as kind of like a dart throw. Like, they probably offered somewhere around where the Cowboys offered a 5th or a 6th-round pick, and if that would have been the case, they would have still been in on Aaron Rodgers. They would have still would have liked to sign him, and kind of the ideal quarterback room would have been Aaron Rodgers, Mason Rudolph, and then Joe Milton as kind of a potential long-term type of dart throw, and then they probably just wouldn't have taken a quarterback in the NFL Draft. So, like, he essentially would have just been their draft pick at the quarterback position if they would have traded for him this year. He wouldn't have been traded. He wouldn't have been the presumptive starter or anything like that. But I can certainly see why the Steelers were interested in him. I would have loved that trade because he's somebody with a bazooka of an arm. He's a big guy. He can run around at his size. He's got some really great arm talent, and he showed some big-time steps in development last year with the New England Patriots in his mental processing, in his pocket presence, in his accuracy. He made some big-time steps last year in New England, and now the Dallas Cowboys are going to be hoping he can take a couple more steps here as their new backup quarterback. And they did something similar last year. They traded for Trey Lance last year, another big armed quarterback, that's got some athleticism. Joe Milton will be kind of slotting into that spot, and Brian Schottenheimer's offense behind Dak Prescott, of course, who has been injury-prone as of late. But it does sound like Milton wanted to go to Dallas, and apparently, according to Schultz's reporting, the Patriots actually took a lesser deal. They had a better deal on the table with a different team, but Milton wanted to go to the Dallas Cowboys because his family was big-time Dallas Cowboys fans. So it's kind of a dream come true for him. So good for Joe. Wish him the best of luck in Dallas, but would have loved to see him here in Pittsburgh as a developmental long-term quarterback project. But what I think this says about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers willing to trade a day 3 draft pick for Milton, I think tells me that they would be willing to do the same for another guy that they like the upside for, somebody that's physically gifted, somebody with a big arm, somebody that does have high theoretical upside that could be got for a day 3 draft pick in a trade. A couple names to watch out for, in my opinion, are Will Levis and Malik Willis. Both these guys were day 2 draft picks, not day 1 draft picks. Both these guys have started games in the National Football League. Willis actually looked pretty decent with the Green Bay Packers in his time last year, and then Will Levis, he was behind some of the worst offensive line play in the NFL in his time as the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. And, I think that I'm intrigued by Will Levis, especially for the right price tag, because he's still on his rookie contract, so he's not costing you much. And because he's not a first-round pick, it's not an expensive rookie contract either. And, he's got a very similar throwing style to Aaron Rodgers. So if you do bring in Rodgers and you're looking for somebody for him to kind of mentor, I think that Levis would be a very moldable type of player that could be your third-string string quarterback for now, but under the tutelage of an Aaron Rodgers could potentially blossom into your franchise quarterback. He's got good size, good athleticism, really great arm talent, needs to work on the accuracy, the mental processing, and the pocket presence, but I'd be willing to give up a 6th-round pick for him. I mean, what quarterback in round 6 are you going to get that has as much upside as Will Levis? I mean, I just don't think you're going to do that, and I think that when you look at the value of the 6th-round pick, I'm not sure if any player that you take in round 6 is going to potentially give you as much as Will Levis did. Plus, the Steelers gave up their 6th-round pick last year for a developmental guy in Justin Fields, and I certainly think they would be open to the possibility of doing that again, especially if they think Levis can develop under Aaron Rodgers as his mentor. So what do you guys think? Let me know down there in the comments section. If the price tag is a 6th-round pick, would you trade for Will Levis to be kind of the developmental quarterback option for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. So the last topic on today's show is that HBO and the NFL have changed their rules for preseason Hard Knocks in terms of the teams that are allowed to refuse to be on the show. And, I think that, the main thing here is that the playoff exception has been lifted. Before, if you had made the playoffs in either of the previous 2 seasons, you could refuse to go on the show. All right, but now that exemption has been lifted, so now playoff teams are now eligible to be on the preseason version of HBO's Hard Knocks. So the 3 things now and the 3 rules for being able to refuse to go on the show. It's either A, you have to have a first-year head coach. 2, you are being featured on the in-season version of the show, so they're going to be doing the division version of the in-season Hard Knocks like they did last year, which, of course, featured the Steelers. But, of course, that's not going to be happening this year, so that does not apply to Pittsburgh this year. And then the final way is that you've been on the preseason version of Hard Knocks the last 8 years, so that dates back to 2017. Of course, the Steelers do not meet any of these criteria, so now the Steelers can now be forced to be on Hard Knocks by the National Football League this year. That is if the NFL and HBO decide they want to feature the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, I mean, Mike Tomlin was the star of the show last year, and Aaron Rodgers was the star of the show when he was featured on the New York Jets Hard Knocks preseason version a couple years ago. And if Rodgers signs here, I think there's a pretty damn good chance that HBO is going to want to cover the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, with Mike Tomlin and his personality going to Latrobe, with Aaron Rodgers coming in to try and save his career. I mean, the storylines are just oozing off of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is, if Rodgers decides to come to the Steel City. So I think if that ends up happening, and I do think Rodgers will eventually sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I do think HBO will probably decide to feature the Steelers in Latrobe this year. So sound off for me down there in the comments section. Would you like to see Hard Knocks feature the Pittsburgh Steelers for the 2nd year in a row, this time in the preseason? Do you want to see Hard Knocks in Latrobe? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. There's parts of me as a fan that wants that inside look to Mike Tomlin's training camp and all that great stuff, but there's also a part of me that says I don't want any more distractions than what Aaron Rodgers is already bringing to the table. So I have mixed feelings about it, guys. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section, and that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, brought to you by Chat Sports. I appreciate all of your guys' support. Click that subscribe button for more extensive Steelers coverage every single day on this channel, 100% free. All right, first segment in the books, and coming up next, I've got my theory on when Aaron Rodgers makes his decision as to whether or not he wants to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think it's a pretty interesting take here, because right now I'm scouring my brain for reasons why he could be still waiting to make a decision, and I think there's one that's staring us right in the face. That kind of like, what's that? It's literally the most obvious thing, is what producer Jack just said. Yeah, I mean, it's just the most Rodgers thing ever. We're going to explain it to you guys here in just a second. And it's pretty interesting. But before we get into that, guys, if you guys want to donate to the show, we've already gotten a couple more Venmos, one more Venmo that I'll send to you here, Mr. Jack. If you guys want to donate to the show, if you have a topic you want me to discuss on today's program, you can donate to the show via Super Chat, Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal. If you're looking for Venmo, Cashapp, or PayPal, all my information is down in the description of today's live show. And we will get to this latest Venmo here in just 1 second. We've got one coming in from my man, Brian Ruiz, a $3 Venmo. Says, has the value of running backs risen again after seeing Jacobs, Henry, Barkley transform their teams and make them even better last year? And, and then there's more here. He says, are you attending the 2026 draft in Pittsburgh? So it's still to be determined on the draft in Pittsburgh next year, Brian. Probably not, just because we do so much live draft coverage from our studios here in Dallas, Texas. So I probably won't be attending. I might fly out to Pittsburgh the week of the draft to do some of the pre-draft festivities or whatever. But I'll probably be here in Dallas for the draft itself. When it comes to running back value, though, absolutely. Absolutely. After what Barkley did last year, he transformed that Eagles team into a Super Bowl champion. And it's tough to say that he was the one that did it because it's just one player, but he transformed that run game into an unstoppable unit, man. It was already pretty darn good with some of the other running backs they had in that group before. With him in there, it was an unstoppable force that nobody, including the two-time reigning champion Chiefs, were able to stop. So I do think that the running back position has gained a little bit of traction because of Henry and Jacobs and, of course, Barkley and their success with their respective teams last year. And I think because of that, you're going to see Genty and you're going to see probably Omari and Hampton go pretty darn early in the NFL draft this year. Star backs, I think, are back in the National Football League. So to answer your question there, Mr. Brian, yes. Then we got another $2 Cash App here that'll send your way here, Jack. There you go. Again, guys, this is where you can find me on Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. $20 to enter a Steelers jersey raffle that we're going to be doing whenever Aaron Rodgers makes his decision, whether it's today, whether it's next week, whether it's 2 months from now. Whenever, what's that? That was a Cash App, correct. Whenever we have that Rodgers live stream, we will be giving away a Steelers jersey, $20 to enter that. And if you use Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal, you get 2 raffle tickets for that jersey raffle. TMN Montana, $2. Appreciate you, my man. Does he have a message here? It says, when is the Madden simulation? So last year and last summer we did Madden Sims. And I think that we want to do them again here on Steelers Talk this year. They're going to be coming after the draft season. So after draft season, we'll probably get the Madden streams going for you. So appreciate the question there. We had a lot of fun with those Madden streams last year. We're going to do them again this year. And to answer your question, after the NFL draft. So we got another Cash App here. There you go. And if we get to $100 total today, we're starting to get closer and closer here. We'll have 15 extra minutes of Steelers discussion with you guys here live on the channel for you guys to enjoy. I want to say we're somewhere around $40 right now. We're at what? We're at 20. All right, so we're still $80 away from extending the show. But if you guys want to send in more of your Super Chats, more of your Venmos, Cash Apps, all that stuff, we will make sure to get that going. Well, we're at 30. Okay, so we're $70 away. Jameson Vickers says, do you got an explanation for the Joe Milton trade? In terms of why he went to the Cowboys, they need a backup quarterback. Cooper Rush left in free agency to Baltimore, by the way. But that's the reasoning for Dallas, is they like to have kind of these higher upside type of backups. They did it with Trey Lance last year, so that's why that happened. And then apparently New England chose to go send him to Dallas because he wanted to go to Dallas. He wanted to be a Cowboy because his parents were big Cowboys fans and he was a big Cowboy fan growing up. So that was the reasoning why that happened. If you're asking why the Steelers didn't give a higher draft pick, listen, man, I think Milton is worth a 5th-round pick, and I think in order for the Patriots to pretty much say no to the Cowboys and send him elsewhere, it would have needed to be like a 3rd-round pick, and that just wasn't going to happen. So I do think that the Steelers, trying to go out and get him, means that they might trade for a higher upside quarterback again. Maybe it's Will Levis, maybe it's Malik Willis, maybe it's somebody else. But there's certainly the possibility that they draft a quarterback this year as well. So I guess we'll just have to see what kind of quote-unquote long-term option they're going to bring in to this team this year. But it certainly seems like, or at least we hope, Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with this team sometime soon. Speaking of Rodgers, I've got my theory as to why this thing is taking so goddamn long, and I've got a date as to when I think it's going to come down. Spoiler alert, it's next week. All right, so let's get into it right now. My Rodgers theory is coming at you guys right here on Steelers Talk. Steelers fans, I think I have figured out why Aaron Rodgers has not signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point, despite a bunch of different signals indicating his interest in the football team. All right, I'm going to be explaining the date that you can probably expect Aaron Rodgers to make his decision by, and if he doesn't pick the Pittsburgh Steelers by this particular date, I think it's officially worry time in Pittsburgh when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers saga. Before we get into today's video, guys, you have to sub to the channel, all right? Because when that breaking news alert comes, we are going to be rushing to the office right here, and we are going to be going live for the Aaron Rodgers decision whenever it comes, whether it's 10 minutes from now or whether it's 10 months from now. We are going to be going live, probably not 10 months, but we will be going live whenever the Aaron Rodgers decision comes down. We'll be giving away a Steelers jersey on that live show as well. So make sure you click that subscribe button, turn on those notifications for the latest updates surrounding Aaron Rodgers. So my theory is that Rodgers has already agreed to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, but he is waiting to make the official announcement somewhere close to Pat McAfee's big event in Pittsburgh next week on Wednesday. It is called the Big Night Out. All right, and he's got a big venue there, a bunch of different tickets that have already gone on sale and sold out. And I think that this is something that, Aaron Rodgers would be very interested in kind of crashing and kind of making his own, especially if he's going to be signing a contract to be the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The date for that is next Wednesday, April 9th. And listen, man, I get it. It sounds crazy. If you would have told me that this was what he was planning 2 weeks ago, I would have said you were absolutely nuts. But the evidence kind of does line up for this to be the case, that he has already agreed to join the Steelers, but he wants to wait for this event to make the decision final. All right, so let's take a look at some of the latest reports surrounding Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports said a couple days ago, it feels like a matter of when, not if, Rodgers signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He says that's the feeling around the National Football League at this point. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN said many believe Pittsburgh has a quote-unquote loose assurance that Rodgers will sign with them this year. You've also got Hathorn, who is a Steelers insider for The Fan, says Pittsburgh said just straight up they have a secret deal done with Aaron Rodgers. And then Nick Farabaugh from Penn Live says Pittsburgh is quote unquote extremely confident that they will land Aaron Rodgers. Then there was other positive signs that have just been going on over the last several weeks. There has been quote unquote ongoing conversations since the beginning of free agency between Rodgers and the Steelers coaching staff, which of course includes Mike Tomlin and offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, and those are still ongoing according to Tom Pelissero. He initiated a 6-hour visit in Pittsburgh that was quote-unquote beyond the pitch, and apparently he was the one that planned that visit, all right? Also, he has been in contact with multiple Steelers players, including starting tight end Pat Freiermuth, and then he had an exclusive throwing session with new number one Steelers receiver DK Metcalf in L.A. All of these things, guys, point to Rodgers wanting to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers eventually. And think about it for a second here, guys. We heard Mike Tomlin, we heard Omar Khan, we heard Art Rooney II talk about how confident they are that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with them this week in Palm Beach for the NFL owners meetings. Why would Pittsburgh feel so confident that they're going to get Rodgers, despite the fact that we are almost a month into NFL free agency and he has still not decided to sign with them? And then also, you might be asking at home here, if the deal is already agreed to, why wait to sign the contract? Why not just sign the contract and, just make it, just have it be done? Well, I think the answer to that question, guys, is that Aaron Rodgers throughout his career has given Pat McAfee very exclusive information and scoops on his career on his program. Back in 2023, Rodgers announced his decision to join the New York Jets, or that he wanted to be traded to the New York Jets, on the Pat McAfee show after he emerged from that darkness retreat where apparently he got some clairvoyance that he had to go to New York City. And keep in mind here, guys, I think in his mind that he could get a hero's welcome from Pittsburgh's, faithful there in Pittsburgh. If he shows up and, there's still not a decision made, and all of a sudden Pat McAfee says, please help us in welcoming your new quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Aaron Rodgers, and he comes out and he's wearing Steelers gear and the crowd's going wild. Like, you're telling me Aaron Rodgers wouldn't eat that shit up? I mean, absolutely he would, all right? Like, it just makes all the sense in the world to me. And, you think about it from Rodgers' perspective. In theory, there's no harm in waiting until April 9th, okay? Because OTAs don't start for the Pittsburgh Steelers and voluntary workouts for this team don't start until April 21st. So maybe in his thinking here, why does it matter if I wait until April 9th? Because I'm not needed on the field with my teammates to build new chemistry until April 9th. And then he's passing the time until April 9th, working out and communicating with Steelers coaches and players just as if he's getting prepared to play quarterback for them in 2025. It just makes all the sense in the world here, guys. And my guess is that Rodgers either makes this decision official next Tuesday, the day before Big Night Out, so that he can go there on Wednesday and kind of get a hero's welcome, or he announces it himself at the event on Wednesday night. I think those are probably the two most likely times that we are going to hear about Aaron Rodgers' decision to join the Pittsburgh Steelers. And listen, man, I understand Pat McAfee has been denying this on his show, all right? And he's denied it multiple times at this point. But that's exactly what Rodgers would be telling him to say right now. What do you think Rodgers would want them to say? Oh, yeah, Rodgers is going to be joining us on Big Night Out. No, he would want it to be a secret. He would want it to be a WWE-style, Undertaker-style entrance, all right? So I absolutely think Pat McAfee, if this is the case, I absolutely think McAfee and his cohorts would absolutely keep this a secret for Aaron if he wanted it to be kept a secret. And I think at this point that is what is being done. And, I will say this though, guys. If Aaron Rodgers is not a Pittsburgh Steeler past that date, if we get to Big Night Out and nothing happens and we still don't have a decision on Rodgers, then I think I'm going to start to be worried, because past that, I don't know what else he would be waiting for, all right? And I really, really don't understand what else he would be waiting for. There's some people that have a theory as to what else he could be waiting for. I'll cover that here in just one moment. But before we get into that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone. You can download it for free on your phone right now and join over 10 million members and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts like player projections up to 25%. To provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can project more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, whether it's baseball, whether it's basketball with the Final Four coming up here pretty soon, whether it's professional basketball, all these different things that are going on right now. Even if you want to go Prize Picks on NASCAR, you can do that as well. So you can download the app today, use code CLNS, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, so now let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, because there's a lot of people that are suggesting that even though the Minnesota Vikings came out literally weeks ago at this point saying, we don't want the guy, there's still some people speculating that the reason why Rodgers is waiting for so long is because he wants to wait and see if Minnesota will eventually throw J.J. McCarthy in the trash can for a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Now, Tom Pelissero said this on March 19th, all right? So this is a half month ago, guys. The Vikings have rejected multiple trade calls on J.J. McCarthy, telling other teams they're moving forward with him as their quarterback, sources say. The team plans to add a veteran, but they're not pursuing Aaron Rodgers at this time. McCarthy now enters the offseason as QB1. And by the way, the Vikings GM, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, and the head coach, Kevin O'Connell, have both said publicly that they are not interested in Aaron Rodgers at this point, yet people still want to push the Vikings narrative. And who knows, maybe it is true that Rodgers is just delusional and wants to go with the Minnesota Vikings even though they've said that they don't want him. But this is what we know right now. Rodgers did reach out to the Vikings in the early days of free agency to see if they were interested. He is close with head coach Kevin O'Connell. They had some conversations of what the offense would look like. Minnesota mulled over the Rodgers possibility, but then came to the conclusion that they believe in J.J. McCarthy because his rehab is going very well off of that meniscus injury last year, and have decided to commit to him as their QB1, not Aaron Rodgers. And now Minnesota has not fully closed the door on Rodgers. They have said, oh, nothing's ever 100% off the table. But listen, man, I think the only way that Rodgers can sneak into Minnesota is if JJ just has an awful offseason or if he has some sort of medical setback. And, I think that there's a very, very small chance that ends up being a possibility, guys. I mean, these workouts are done in shorts. They're done in a situation where the quarterback is designed to look good. So unless McCarthy is just an absolute freaking disaster, or if he gets hurt again somehow, I just don't see any way that Rodgers is going to sneak his way in to the Minnesota Vikings circle. And I also think, if Rodgers' strategy is to wait as long as it takes for the Vikings to sign him, I think that's a dumb strategy if his strategy is to win football games next year. I truly believe that. The Steelers, I don't think, have as good of a situation as Minnesota does, but it's not a bad situation. They've won 10 games with subpar quarterback and offensive play the last 2 years, and their defense is filled with all-pro caliber talent. They just added DK Metcalf, who is an awesome talent. Rodgers would know that. He worked out with him. But Rodgers requires communication and chemistry with his wide receivers, guys. He needs it. He has so many hand signals and audibles and checks at the line of scrimmage. If he's joining the Minnesota Vikings in training camp after J.J. McCarthy gets hurt again, and that's what he's banking on, even if that happens and he signs with the Vikings, is he going to develop the chemistry that's needed to run his style of offense in Minnesota? I really don't think that's going to be the case. But right now it seems like he's already building that chemistry with DK Metcalf with that exclusive throwing session that he had at UCLA. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, he definitely wants those photos and that video out there of him working out with DK, because there's no way that leaks if he doesn't want it out there. So I really do think, guys, that Rodgers would have a better chance to win next season in Pittsburgh as opposed to waiting and missing time to develop chemistry with his receivers in Minnesota. I agree with him. If I were Aaron Rodgers, I would have given Kevin O'Connell that call at the beginning of NFL free agency. I would have wanted the Vikings over the Steelers. But the Vikings are not in on him, and they won't be in on him for weeks at this point. So if Rodgers wants a home for 2025, I think Pittsburgh is the one that makes the most sense for him. Now, where I'm at with this entire situation, guys, is I don't think Rodgers is waiting on Minnesota. Like I talked about, I think he's waiting on the Pat McAfee show's Big Night Out in Pittsburgh next Wednesday. But if we get to next Thursday with no deal done with him being the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback, it's like, what other options are there? Then he just doesn't want to go to Pittsburgh. And that's what worries me. All right. So I think we've got about a week left before the Big Night Out to have an answer from Aaron Rodgers. And if we get that, great. He's the starting quarterback of this team. We can move forward with that. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. Sometime early next week, we're going to hear from Rodgers, and he's going to be at the Big Night Out, and it's going to be a whole fanfare. But if we get past that event and he is still not the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers and he's not under contract, it's going to be officially panic time when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation as far as I'm concerned. So what's the hold up here? Let me know what you guys think. Down there in the comments section, type PM if you think he's waiting for the Pat McAfee show. Type MV if you think he's waiting for the Minnesota Vikings. Or if you have some other theory, let me know down there in the comments section. What the heck is taking Rodgers so long to make this decision? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more Aaron Rodgers updates as they come all throughout the weekend. Really do appreciate all of your support. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, we got the Rodgers portion of the video out of the way. Now we shift our focus to draft content. I've got some mock drafts I'm going to be reacting to on this show, and then I've got my very own 6.0, my sixth Steelers mock draft, 7 rounds for you guys at the end of today's program. $5 coming in from my man Gary Frank. Says, do you think Rooney even has a say-so? Everything he says never comes true. Seems Tomlin and Smith have more say-so. And yes, the answer to the question, Gary, is yes. The thing about Rooney, and the thing that I respect about him, all right, I don't think he's a terrific owner, But the thing that I respect about him, and the thing I think that he does well, is he lets his football people make the football decisions. All right, it's not like Jerry Jones, who wants to play billionaire, NFL, football guy, and just makes all the decisions for his teams. Like, that's not what Rooney does. He trusts Omar Khan and he trusts Mike Tomlin, the guys that run the football operation, to run the football operation. So, we can say whatever we want about the owner of the Steelers, but I think he does do that very well. So whenever Rooney speaks to the media, I kind of take it with a grain of salt because he's not the one making the decisions. All right, he's privied to some of the conversations that Khan and Tomlin are having, but he is not the one making the decisions. And if he really wanted to, he could usurp Omar or Mike on a decision. Like, if he really wanted a certain quarterback in the first round, he could step in and kind of force them to take that quarterback. But that's not really the type of owner that he is. He trusts the personnel that he has hired to do the jobs that they are hired to do. And, we can say what we want about Rooney, but at least he does that. All right, we got a couple more donations here. Another one from Gary. Says, Jack, you're tripping. Nothing Rodgers does is typical. He's a lot of drama. There's absolutely nothing to wait for. We are his last option. So the thing that I agree, Gary, but the thing that is to be waiting for is that his buddy Pat McAfee has a giant show on next Wednesday in Pittsburgh, of all places, and he probably wants to help that event be as successful as it possibly can. He's trying to do his buddy Pat McAfee and, of course, AJ Hawk and all the different people that he's buddies with on his show a favor, all right? And he wants to do himself a favor because, listen, man, you think Rodgers doesn't want to come out on stage with an entire stadium, cheering for him? Of course he wants that shit, man. Of course he would want that, especially with McAfee and the rest of the boys, lauding him up and, pumping him up, all this different stuff. It just makes too much sense to me, man. It really does. And like I said, 2 weeks ago, if you would have said, oh, he's waiting for April 9th, I would have said, man, that's just too far away. But the closer we get to April 9th, the more I think it's going to happen. And of course, McAfee and the boys are denying it. They want to keep it a secret. They want it to be the perfect dramatic effect.
Yeah, like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, they're going to be like, oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. He's going to announce he's signing with the Steelers.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
You think McAfee's going to make the announcement for him? No way. I mean, of course, they're going to deny that he's going to be there.
Guys, people lie.
Yes.
People fib.
People lie all the time.
So that you can hide a surprise. There is nobody, I don't think, with a bigger ego in the history of the world than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers wants to be the center of attention at all times. You don't think that him walking out to a sold-out arena, everyone yelling his name and cheering his name, you don't think that gets him feeling a certain type of way? I mean, come on. It's almost too perfect.
Especially because it appears the Steelers are okay with it. The Steelers, based on their language at the NFL owners meeting, they're not worried at all. They just know he's going to sign. How can they be that sure unless they have some sort of assurance that he's going to sign with them? And maybe he goes on that visit to Pittsburgh and he says, oh yeah, Mike Tomlin, by the way, I'll come play for your team, but you have to keep this a secret. You think Tomlin's saying no? I think Tomlin's saying yes. They don't care. There's no OTAs going on right now. They don't care. I mean, like, or at April 21st when voluntary workouts begin. All right, like that is the first point where I'm really starting to be like, all right, Aaron, where are you at, man? We're at OTAs and you're not here. But like, if it's April 9th and he announces it next Wednesday, it really isn't much of a difference if he would have signed the first day of free agency because he hasn't missed any team meetings. He hasn't missed any opportunity to build chemistry with receivers. And by the way, he's actually building chemistry with receivers right now. Apparently, he's been in communication with Muth. He's already thrown with DK Metcalf. Like, it just seems to me like this is already a done deal, and he's just waiting to make the announcement official on McAfee's show. Because, like... It would be another, it's in Pittsburgh, and I don't know, man. It's just, to me, there's just too much evidence lined up for this to be the case, for it not to be the case. It's like the Steelers feel super confident he's coming. He's shown every single marker of interest along the way. Like, if he wasn't interested in Pittsburgh, he could have made that a 1-hour visit or a 2-hour visit in Pittsburgh. Why are you spending hours in the film room with Arthur Smith breaking down the offense if you're not interested in joining the Pittsburgh Steelers? It makes no sense. Why would you text the number one receiver of that new football team that you would be playing for in DK Metcalf and work out with him at UCLA if you weren't going to play with him? It makes no sense. It's too perfect. And by the way, where did he announce his next team last time? On the McAfee show. It makes too much sense, all right? So I know McAfee and crew are denying it. I think they're liars, all right? And it doesn't make them bad people, all right? They're fibbing to keep a secret for their friend, all right? It doesn't make McAfee and those guys bad people for lying to us, but they are lying to us, I think. Sheldon, $5, says, what's the difference between Will Levis and Malik Willis being mentored by Aaron Rodgers? There's not a huge difference. I will say Malik is a more dynamic rusher than Levis is, but Levis has the quicker release. And, both of those guys have some very high-end physical traits. I will also say Levis is the bigger player. Willis is kind of tiny. So, I would not be shocked if they traded for either one of those guys, all right? Traded a 5th or a 6th round pick for Levis or Willis. Because at that point, if you're going to take a quarterback with your 5th round or 6th round pick, I don't know if you're getting anybody with as much upside as Levis and Willis do. Because they both have strong arms. They're both athletic. They're both kind of higher upside options that haven't panned out yet in the National Football League, but could potentially under the right mentorship. $2 from Dark City says, if Aaron Rodgers isn't signed, what about a trade for Dak? Don't think they're not trading Dak, dude. They just signed him to a massive contract. They did not trade for Joe Milton to start him week 1. That's not why they traded for him. He is their backup quarterback. So, Dak Prescott will not be a Pittsburgh Steeler this year. $2 from CJ Ross says Rodgers' deal is done. He wants to announce it on the McAfee show in Pittsburgh. Listen, man, I don't think that McAfee scheduled this event in Pittsburgh for this specific reason. I think that this was an event that was already going to happen. And then maybe around the time that the Vikings said, no to Aaron Rodgers, I think Rodgers, texted him and said, hey, can we make something happen here? I'm going to go to the Steelers, or I think I'm going to go to the Steelers. Can we make something happen for me to join you guys on the big night out? And I think that that's been in the works for a couple of weeks now. I think Rodgers probably agreed to join the Steelers sometime around that visit a couple weeks ago, maybe shortly after that. And ever since then, it's been in the works. And he's been working out with DK, and he's been talking with the coaching staff, and he's been talking with Muth. And seems like he's already a part of the team. All right, so the question is, why is he not a part of the team? And at least my answer is he's waiting for this Pat McAfee event because he's always given the scoops to McAfee. Always. He hates Adam Schefter. He hates Ian Rappaport. He doesn't trust anybody else. He likes McAfee. That's his buddy. His buddy AJ Hawk is on that show. I think that's what's going to happen. That's just what I think. $20 from CJ Ross. My man, appreciate you. He says, for raffle. That's 2 raffle entries for you, my friend. Thanks for the $20. You are a real one. All right. Now we shift to the draft content. Enough Rodgers talk, all right? Let's get into the draft stuff. Let's see who all the top NFL draft analysts are projecting to the Steelers here in round 1. The NFL mock draft roundup for your Pittsburgh Steelers is coming at you guys right now. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today we're going to be taking a look at all the latest NFL mock drafts and who some of the top NFL draft analysts in the draft space are projecting to the Pittsburgh Steelers in round 1 of the 2025 NFL Draft. Before we get things going today, I actually do a lot of content for our NFL Draft channel here at Chat Sports. It's called NFL Draft by Chat Sports. So if you guys want to click that subscribe button, not only to this channel, but also go check out that channel for additional NFL Draft related content, mock drafts every single week, positional rankings, all that great stuff. If you're a draft nerd like myself and you love the draft content we have here on Steelers Talk and you want kind of a more general sense of the NFL Draft, you guys can go check out that channel and click that subscribe button. I'm also posting a bunch of draft content on my X account at Jack_Sperry, along with my daily Steelers content content. So make sure you go check that out if you haven't already. And with that, let's get into the content here, where there seems to be a new favorite for the Steelers to pick at number 21. Among, kind of the national media kind of conglomerate here, there seems to be a thread that is starting to kind of be linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, Field Yates from ESPN, Bucky Brooks from NFL Network, and then Bruce Feldman from The Athletic all have the Steelers taking this player with their first pick at number 21 overall in round 1. And that player is quarterback Jackson Dart. And, this has become a more and more popular pick throughout the draft process here, and it's worrying me a little bit here. We'll talk about why in just a second, but this is what Field Yates had to say about why he's mocking Jackson Dart to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, it seems the Steelers are the most likely landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. Signing him would not preclude them from looking toward the future at quarterback. Rodgers is 41 years old, and each coming season is a true year-to-year proposition. But Pittsburgh hasn't even signed Rodgers yet, meaning Mason Rudolph is the current QB1. Let's lock up another signal caller for the Steelers here. He has good mobility and accuracy, throwing 52 touchdowns and 11 interceptions over the past 2 seasons. Now, for me personally, guys, I think Jackson Dart at number 21, especially without a trade down, is a reach. And I think that it would definitely call back to not trading back and taking Kenny Pickett in the first round all those years back. Somebody that, in my opinion, is not a true first-round quarterback. He's a little bit of a projection. And then even if he does turn into an NFL starter, I think he's going to be a mid-level starter. I don't see a lot of star or superstar potential with Jackson Dart, even though there are things that I like. I like his accuracy to all levels of the field. I like his touch passing over the middle and down the sideline. I like how efficient he was with throwing the ball down the field last year. He's a plus rusher. He's got that NFL arm, and he's got some great competitive toughness, all right? And I think Tomlin would really appreciate that. But the cons, he doesn't have great pocket presence, which I think really affects his upside. He also has mental processing question marks because he played in a very college-esque offense that gave him a wide-open read on his first read more often than not. Lots of RPOs, lots of screens as well. And I think that there's a lack of overall star upside. And I don't think he's a particularly clutch performer either. He played some of his worst football when the game was on the line there at Ole Miss. So for me, I have a round 2 grade on him. And, I think that a value for him would be with your 3rd round pick, but with all the smoke surrounding him, I really think that he's going to end up going late round 1 or sometime during round 2. My pro comp for him is that he's diet Jalen Hurts. He's not as fast. He's not as accurate as Jalen Hurts is, but he's got a lot of the similar qualities. They're both accurate. They both got great touch on their deep ball, all this different stuff. And, they're both plus rushers. They both don't have great pocket presence, all this different stuff. And I can certainly see why, the Steelers, a team that's trying to build their team in a similar light to the Philadelphia Eagles, would want a guy that kind of comps to Jalen Hurts, and he kind of fits the mold for what they're looking for. Somebody that can throw a good deep ball, somebody with a good NFL arm that can cut through the elements of the AFC North, somebody that can run when you ask him to. He's got that mobility to pick up a first down from time to time. I really don't know if the lack of superstar upside is going to scare them all that much, because they don't necessarily need, in their mind, a superstar quarterback. They want that superstar running back, and that's what they want the main engine of the offense to be, not necessarily the passing game. And my take on Jackson Dart here, guys, and just taking a quarterback in general here, is that especially if they get Aaron Rodgers, I don't think they take a quarterback in round 1. I think they'll find somebody in the middle rounds to take, whether that be Will Howard, Jalen Milroe, somebody along those lines. But if they do miss out on Aaron Rodgers and he retires or he goes to the Vikings or whatever he decides to do with his life in 2025, if that's the case, then the Steelers, I think that this becomes a real possibility for them, because they get put in a place of desperation. And I really hope that doesn't happen. I really hope Rodgers is here, so it gives the Steelers every option at their disposal. And I hope that they don't get put in that place of desperation at the quarterback position this year. So let me know down there in the comment section, what grade would you give a Jackson Dart pick in round 1? Multiple national NFL draft media people are having the Steelers take Jackson Dart at 21 without a trade down. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics today, give me a grade for Jackson Dart in round 1. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where you guys can get the officially licensed 2025 NFL Draft hat for your Pittsburgh Steelers. All you have to do is use our link, chatsports.com/pit25. That's down in the comments and description of today's show. They got 2 different colorways this year. This is the off-white coloring there with the black bill and the gold leafing. I got one of these for myself personally, and I also really like the regular design this year. This is the one you're going to see all the draft picks for the Steelers this year wear on draft day, with the black and then the gold bill with the gold lettering. Really clean, really simple, nothing too crazy, which is something that I appreciate. Like I said, I already got myself one of these guys. I think you might want to as well. So go to chatsports.com/pit25. Use that link and make a purchase. It helps out the channel. So if you want to help out the channel today and get yourself a new draft hat, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, go to chatsports.com/pit25 and get your new hat today. So now Lance Zierlein from NFL Network actually projects the Pittsburgh Steelers to take defensive tackle in round 1 in his latest mock, Derek Harmon out of Oregon, which is one of the more popular draft targets among Steelers fans out there. And the best part about Zierlein's mock here is that the Steelers actually trade down and still get him at number 26 overall after trading down with the Los Angeles Rams. This is the projected trade where the Pittsburgh Steelers will get an additional 3rd-round pick for moving down a couple of spots here with the Los Angeles Rams. This is what Zierlein had to say about this pick. Earlier in the pre-draft process, an NFC executive told me that Harmon, quote-unquote, plays like a Raven or a Steeler, unquote. Well, here we are, and the Steelers still need defensive line after moving back in this mock. And listen, man, I think if you trade down and you still get Derek Harmon, I think that would be a phenomenal result for the Pittsburgh Steelers on night 1. Because not only do you get somebody that's going to be able to make a super easy transition whenever Cam Hayward decides to hang up his cleats, but also you get a great player that can contribute day 1, and you get another day 2 pick to go out and get another potential impact player. So the things that I love about Harmon, guys, he's got great get-off, which allows him to really be disruptive off the snap, which you just don't see very often, all right? He's got great quickness and athleticism, and then he pairs that with really good power as well. So even if he doesn't beat you with quickness off the snap, he can bull rush you as well. So he's got a myriad of different ways to beat you as an interior pass rusher. He's got some hand fighting moves as well. Maybe not elite as a hand fighter, but he certainly can win with his hands, and he's good at run defense as well. Again, not elite run defender, but he is a very good one. And I think the one con that I consistently see on his film is that tackling inconsistency is certainly part of his game, where he can get in the backfield, but then he'll miss the running back, like that sort of stuff. But plain and simply, guys, the name of the game when it comes to interior pass rush is disruption. And Derek Harmon, certainly somebody that's going to be able to do that, I think, from day 1 in the National Football League. And he would make the transition from Cam Hayward to a new player of the future along the interior of the D-line seamless. All right, Harmon said himself, I believe it was at the Senior Bowl, that he compares his game to Cam Hayward, or maybe it was the Combine. But Harmon reminds a lot of people of Cam Hayward because they do play the game in a very similar fashion. And I think that if Harmon had the opportunity to learn from Cam Hayward for 2 years before eventually taking over that starting spot alongside Keanu Benton in the Steelers' four-man fronts, I think that would be something that would be a really good plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I would be thrilled if Harmon was the Steelers' pick at 26 after trading down. So make sure you guys like this video if you haven't already for more Steelers draft videos like this one. If you want more extensive, in-depth prospect analysis, mock drafts, all the different stuff we do on this channel, clicking that thumbs up icon lets us know that this is the content that you enjoy watching, and we'll get more of these videos out to you. So now lastly, let's break down ESPN Matt Miller's 7-round mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because he makes some interesting picks here. We'll start with the 1st-round pick here with Azariah Thomas, cornerback out of Florida State. I'll break that down here in just a second. Then he goes Jalen Milroe, quarterback in round 3. Cam Scatabo falls all the way to round 4, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Holland Price, an offensive tackle out of Rutgers, going round 5. Jordan Watkins, a receiver out of Ole Miss, in round 6. And then Donovan Edwards, the Don, heading to Pittsburgh in round 7. Now, for me, guys, go ahead and get your grade down there in the comment section, A, B, C, D, or F. For me, I got to give it a B-. All right, and I think the reason for that is I don't love the first-round pick in Azariah Thomas. Thomas has really good film. I like his physicality. I like his long arms. I like his experience in press man coverage. All right, I think if you want to go, two big boys on the outside with Thomas and JPJ for the future, I think you could absolutely do that. But I would be disappointed with this pick in round 1. I think that I'd be happy with Thomas on day 2 if they wanted to go that route. But round 1 for a guy that's not going to be playing much his rookie season because he's a true outside corner, and Darius Slay and Joey Porter Jr., of course, are true outside guys, and those are going to be your starters. So Azariah Thomas brings great size to the table, but as you guys can see with the 40-yard dash time, it's not great at 4.58. For a corner, that is a death sentence, and with some of the speed he's going to have to go up against in the National Football League, that's not going to cut it in this league, plain and simple, guys, and he's going to have to prove that even despite that really, really poor time for a corner, that he's going to be able to hold up on the outside in man coverage against some of these speedier receivers in the league. And, if it's going to be defensive back in round 1, I would really prefer it to be a nickel, because if it's a nickel, he could realistically start year 1. If you're getting an outside corner, he's going to be sitting behind Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay, waiting for one of those guys to get injured, essentially, to even have a chance to play in year 1. And, the first-round pick usually is reserved for players that you really want to have an impact on day 1. I think the 2 guys in round 1 that can be big-time impact nickel defenders are Jahdae Barron out of Texas and Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Both of them played in multiple different types of alignments. Malachi played a lot in the box and at free safety as well as in the slot, but Jahdae also played in the slot, but he also played outside corner. So depending on what blend you want at nickel defender, if you want to go get a corner and a defensive back in round 1, I would prefer it much more to be Jahdae Barron or Malachi Starks than somebody in Azariah Thomas who has good film, good technique, long arms, physical, but doesn't necessarily have the speed, and it isn't going to be playing day 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Now, the picks that I did like from Matt Miller in his mock was I like Jalen Milroe in round 3, especially if you get Aaron Rodgers. Right? If you have Aaron Rodgers to teach Jalen Milroe the game, essentially, and the position, I think that could be great for the Pittsburgh Steelers, both in the short term and in the long term. I also really like the Cam Scatabo pick specifically for the 4th-round value. All right, he's not fast, but listen, man, James Conner wasn't fast. He was good here in Pittsburgh, and he's great in Arizona right now. Scadabo's got everything that you want, and your number 1 running back outside of long speed. All right, he's got quick feet, great vision, great hands, great receiving chops. He's a great route runner. Obviously, he's got the power. Obviously, he's got the competitive toughness that you look for. And his contact balance is the 2nd best in this class, only to Ashton Genty. All right, like this guy breaks tackles like a mother effer. All right, and I would love for him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, especially if he makes it to round 4. Then Jordan Watkins out of Ole Miss. Keep your eye on this guy, man. The Steelers had a meeting with him at the Combine this year, and he's one of my favorite sleeper wide receivers. All right, this guy's fast, all right? He's a little bit undersized in terms of height. He's not very tall, but he's built kind of pretty well for his height at 5'11", and then he runs a 4.38. I mean, this guy is absolutely blazing. He's a deep threat. He's a good yards after the catch threat. I like his run blocking mentality as well at 5'11" and a quarter. He's at 196 pounds, which is pretty decent. And if you take a look at his stats versus Arkansas last year, he had 8 catches for 254 yards and 5 touchdowns. This guy's projected to go like in round 7 or round 6. All right, I love this pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers as a sleeper pick. And then his final game at Ole Miss versus Duke, 7 catches for 180 and 2 tuds. This guy is a big play waiting to happen. And honestly, I kind of forgot he was in this class because I keep watching Jackson Dart film and Trey Harris film, and I keep saying to myself, who the hell is 11? This guy's a great player, man. This guy's getting open all the time. He's great after the catch. He's tough as nails. Right now, he's projected to be like a 6th or 7th round pick. I love this pick from Matt Miller, and I'd be thrilled if he is the pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers here in round 6. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Who's a sleeper prospect at any position? Doesn't have to be wide receiver. Who's a sleeper in this year's class that you hope the Steelers get on day 3 of the NFL draft? this season. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. That will conclude today's mock draft roundup for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Got more content coming your way here in the days to come surrounding the black and gold, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, here we go, Steelers. We've got a guest here all the way from London, England. Mr. Jeffrey Cooperstein says, here we go, Steelers, here we go. Here we go, Steelers, here we go. There we go, Coop. Appreciate you stopping by today, pal. Hope you're enjoying yourself in London. It looks like you're having a blast. $5 from Gary. Says Egbuka, GP is gone next year. Egbuka is perfect replacement. Listen, man, if they draft Egbuka in round 1, I think they're trading George Pickens. All right, because they like Calvin. They like Roman. They like these guys as kind of the supplementary receivers. And, of course, they like Metcalf because they just paid him $30 million per season over 5 years. So if they go with Egbuka, if they go with Golden, if they go with any of these receivers, GP's not gone next year. He's gone probably this year. And that's something I don't want to see happen, man. I'd rather take a mid-round wide receiver to be a supplementary piece as opposed to letting go of George Pickens this year and drafting receiver round 1. There's some really good receivers in this class, but I already think, DK and GP, I think that they can be one of the best receiver duos in the game. All right, and listen, man, the franchise tag is still available to use on George Pickens next year if you really need him to. If you really need to put the tag on him, you can do that. And also, if you let him walk and he signs a big contract, that means you get a nice little comp pick as well in 2027. All right, so I don't want to get rid of him unless, I'd be open to trading George Pickens if you get a day 2 pick for him. But if you're not getting a day 2 pick for him, you might as well let him play it out this year, let him go, and then you can get a comp pick for him and you could draft his replacement next year. All right, I think the focus needs to be on trying to help the team win now. And right now, with all the heavy formations and multiple tight end sets Art likes to run and how run heavy this team is going to be, I don't know if taking a wide receiver in round 1 to be your wide receiver 3 is necessarily the move that you want to make. So if they draft a receiver round 1, I'd say try to trade George Pickens for something that he's worth. So you can get an additional draft pick because you still need defensive tackle. You still need a backup quarterback, a long-term potential, dart throw at quarterback. You still need a running back. There's still other things that you need other than running back, wide receiver. And let's face it, after getting DK Metcalf, this isn't a big need for the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore. They like Calvin Austin III. He's a great route runner. He's great after the catch. And he made some really tough catches down the field for this team last year. Roman Wilson, they spent a day 2 pick on this guy just last year, man. They still believe in Roman Wilson. So I fail to see why so many people are so jazzed about taking a receiver round 1 when you got to get a number 1 running back, man. You got to get another defensive tackle. You got other things that you got to address here other than receiver. So I think if you go receiver round 1, you better be pretty freaking sure you can get a day 2 draft pick in exchange for George Pickens because, goodness gracious, you got other things you got to address if you're going to be a winning football team this next season. All right, guys. Well, did we make it? Oh, actually, we got one more. We're at $75 right now. Okay, so if we can get $25 more in donations by the end of our final segment today, Jack and I will stay live for an extra 15 minutes to shoot the shit, talk Steelers football with you guys, talk about Rodgers, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about to finish out today's show. So we're still $25 away from 100 this afternoon. So if you guys want to send in some 10s, some 5s, help contribute to that 25, greatly appreciate your guys' support. And while you guys get those donations in, let's get to our final segment of the day, which is my 6th 7-round Steelers mock draft of the year, which is coming at you guys right now. It's another week and yet another 7-round Steelers mock draft from me, your host, Jack Sperry, here on Steelers Talk. Before we get into the content today, before I break down my latest 6 picks in the 7 rounds of the 2025 NFL Draft for your Pittsburgh Steelers, if you want another mock draft next week, we got to get to 500 likes on today's video. So if you love these mock drafts, you like them every single week, and you want to see more of them, click that thumbs up icon right now. And without further ado, let's get into it. So my rule is, if you've been watching this series throughout, the offseason here is I don't want to repeat players from previous mocks. All right. So all 5 of my previous mock drafts have players that you will not see on today's mock. So if you guys want to check out some of the other mock draft videos we have done on this channel, if there's a player that you really want the Steelers to take that I don't take in this mock draft, I probably took him in a previous one. So make sure you guys go check that out. And then also today, no trades. Last week I traded down. 2 weeks ago, I traded for Joe Milton, who, of course, is a Cowboy now. But today, no trades, just straight up 6 picks for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'll start with round 1, pick 21. And I'm going to take Omarion Hampton, running back out of UNC. Now, is Hampton even going to be here at 21? I don't know. I think he could go as high as 10 to the Chicago Bears, especially if Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders at 6. But Hampton is somebody that I have fallen in love with as a prospect. I think he's a bona fide stud at the position. And out of this class that has a lot of good running backs, I think there's 2 guys that give you a really good chance to be stars right away in the league. It's Ashton Jeanty and then Omarion Hampton. So well built. He's got great size. He's got good long speed, acceleration. He's got some of the smoothest feet that you will see from anybody's tape in this year's class. And this is a phenomenal draft class, guys. Now, I think that he is certainly somebody that is worth a first-round selection. And I would say don't sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers taking a running back in round 1, especially if they have a chance to get Ashton Jeanty or Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. I would fully expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to be looking to potentially get one of these guys because, plain and simply, Pittsburgh wants their offense to be run through the run game. They want to have a dominant run game that even if the defense knows they're running it, and even if they're stacking the box, that they can still have success running the football. There's only a few teams in the league that are capable of doing that. Philadelphia Eagles are certainly one of them. When the Niners are going good with Christian McCaffrey, they can certainly do it. Derrick Henry with the Baltimore Ravens, and of course Lamar Jackson supplementing him. There's only a select few run games in the league that can enforce their will on the ground the way the Steelers want to, and you need to have a superstar running back in order to make that happen, guys. I do think that, the Steelers if they have an opportunity to get a true stud at the position, they should take it, especially if they do want this offense to be run through the run game. But I will say it needs to be a true stud at the position. All right. You have to have a true first-round grade on the running back that you take in round 1 because this draft class is so deep that if you're looking for a mid-round level caliber guy, you could easily get one on day 3. So I'm not going to be taking Quinshon Judkins or Cam Scatabo or any of these guys that I think should go on day 2 when I think these 2 are the only 2 guys that are worth a first-round selection. But if Jeanty or Hampton is there, I think that may be the pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers because running back is such an important position for them to fill, to find Jalen Warren a running mate for the next several seasons in this backfield and hopefully create one of the best run games in the National Football League. I think Jeanty, Hampton are the 2 guys that are capable of making that happen from day 1 as a round 1 pick. So if Hampton is there, I am pulling the trigger. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you be happy if the Pittsburgh Steelers took Omarion Hampton in round 1 at pick number 21? Give me yes or no down there in the comments section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Here in round 3, I'm going to take Notre Dame safety / slot defender Xavier Watts, team captain for the Fighting Irish last year in their pursuit of a national championship. Of course, they fell just short to the Ohio State Buckeyes. But I think the reason why I decided to take Watts in the 3rd round in this week's mock draft is because he didn't test the best, all right? He's not necessarily the fastest guy out there or the most explosive. His relative athletic score is just okay at 5.8. He ran a 4.58. Which isn't terrible, but it's certainly not elite either. So I think that Watts is the type of guy that can play strong safety if you need him to, and he can also play in the slot. He's really good in coverage, really good in man coverage specifically, but he also plays with good zone eyes. He's a great locker room presence, which I think Mike Tomlin is really going to love. He could be a future team captain for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deshaun Elliott is on the last year of his contract, so if you need somebody to play strong safety in the future, Watts has the size to do that. But I would be playing him at slot corner to start his career as kind of like a big nickel type of defender. I think he could be a a real presence for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And because his testing numbers weren't phenomenal, I do think there's a chance that he ends up falling to the Steelers in round 3 at pick number 83. So if that happens, Mike Tomlin and all the Steelers brass were there at his pro day. I think that this is certainly someone that the Steelers have on their radar. And coming up here, I got my day 3 draft picks. All right, so some sleepers for you to keep your eye on for the Pittsburgh Steelers here in 2025. But before we get into those, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks, which is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone. This sports season, you can download the Prize Picks app for free on your phone right now and join over 10 million members and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. To play, all you have to do is pick 2 to 6 player stat projections on the Prize Picks app. Go more than or less than, and if you get them right and if you know ball, you could be making some money with our friends at Prize Picks today. And it's a bevy of different sports. If you want stock car racing, if you want mixed martial arts, if you want baseball, if you want basketball, when football season comes around, you can certainly do that as well. They got it all on Prize Picks, so get in on the fun right now by downloading the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, run your game. So here in round 4, I'm going to take the future nose tackle of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's going to be C.J. West, defensive tackle out of Indiana, who's just a menace, man. He's an athletic freak, and he's a great run defender, and those are the things that I'm looking for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. I also think he's got some quickness and athleticism that will allow him to potentially be the future replacement of Cam Hayward as the other true starting 3 technique in this defense. And you look at that 40-yard dash time, under 5 seconds for a nose tackle is very impressive, a 9.15 overall relative athletic score. I mean, this guy's quick, man, and he pairs that with really great functional strength, good technique against the run, keeps the pad level low, which I appreciate. And if he's available here at 123, there's going to be a good kind of defensive tackle type available at this spot, whether that's J.J. Pegues, whether that's C.J. West, whether that's somebody else. There's going to be a good player for the Steelers to take a defensive tackle at the beginning of day 3, in my opinion. For me, C.J. West is the pick. Round number 5 here, 156. I'm going to take Will Howard, quarterback out of Ohio State. And the Steelers have certainly shown some interest in the national championship Buckeye quarterback here. And, I think that he reminds Arthur Smith of Ryan Tannehill because he has a lot of the same qualities, and kind of like Tannehill, I think it's going to take Will Howard a couple years in the league to really get his feet wet and really be ready to be a starter. And then when he does become a starter, like Tannehill eventually became, if he becomes a starter, he's going to be like a mid-level guy that needs help around him. So he's got good size. He's got some athleticism to him. He can run. He's got a good NFL arm. He can throw the ball down the field with some nice touch. And he had a really strong finish to his season there at Ohio State. He got better as the season went on, which is a good sign. But his pocket presence is abysmal. He's got accuracy inconsistencies, mental processing. There's a lot of one read to check down or one read to run type of football there at Ohio State last year. And honestly, I don't love his situational awareness. He was throwing short of the sticks a lot last year at Ohio State. Now, maybe they were telling him to do that, and they were saying, hey, our defense is just so good, we don't have to worry about trying to throw these balls into super tight windows on 3rd down. But, I think that this is somebody with some potential. And I think, because he's got the good NFL arm, he's got the size, he's got some mobility. Those are some traits that Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith are going to like in his profile. So if he's here in round 5, I'd be more than willing to take him as a kind of day 3 quarterback dart throw, especially if Aaron Rodgers is in the building, which I expect. Round 6 here, I'm going to take a wide receiver. That's going to be a really important piece to this Steelers offense, and Kobe Hudson as a true route runner, somebody that's going to get open early in the down, whether that's in the slot, whether that's outside as the Z. Kobe Hudson is somebody that doesn't have great speed, but he's got great route running technique and intelligence in terms of how the corner's trying to play him, and then he just wins all the time on film, man. And right now the consensus board is allowing me to take Kobe Hudson here in round 6, so I'm absolutely going to take that because he's probably a top 5 5, maybe borderline top 5 route runner in the entire class, and I'm getting him here in round 6, and this is a piece that the Steelers desperately need in their wide receiver room. You've already got downfield threats. I don't need him to be a blazing fast player. I need somebody that can get open to the short and intermediate levels of the field quickly. Kobe Hudson can do that. I think he's a perfect fit. Round 7, I'm going to take another defensive tackle here because, Cam Hayward's not getting any younger, and you got to continue to take dart throws at the position, and you always need rotational defensive linemen as well. Somebody the Steelers have shown a lot of interest in here, and Yaya Black, defensive tackle out of Iowa, who was brought in for a top 30 visit. They showed interest in him at the Combine as well. And he's a big body for sure. Not as athletic as C.J. West. He'd be more of a true nose tackle type than West would be. But he's certainly somebody that can sit in the middle of a defense, stop the run, do all those different things. And I think that's something the Steelers would find value in their round 7 pick. So let me know down there in the comments section. This is my mock 6.0, taking the future superstar running back of the future here in Pittsburgh and Amari and Hampton in round 1. Slot defender / future strong safety, Xavier Watts in round 3. C.J. West at the beginning of day 3. Will Howard, quarterback, developmental type in round 5. Kobe Hudson, a really good wide receiver at a great value in round 6. And then Yaya Black, another run-stuffing defensive tackle in round 7. Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for this week's mailbag here on Steelers Talk. Thank you for once again joining me for this week's edition of the Steelers Talk Mock Draft. I will see you guys next time. And until then, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, $20 away now with the 5 from Gary Frank. This is how much would we pay GP with the franchise tag next year? We don't know, Gary, because it hasn't been announced. It gets announced next year, what the franchise tag is going to be for the wide receiver position, or at least I believe that's the case. And, it's not going to be cheap, but it's not going to be like DK level money. It'll be somewhere probably in the mid-20s is what they would be paying him if they franchise tag him. Which, by the way, if he has a great season this year, I'd be okay with. I mean, you look at some of these teams, Philly's paid their top 2 wide receivers. The Bengals have paid their top 2 receivers. If George Pickens becomes the player that the Steelers have been hoping that he becomes this year, there's no reason not to bring him back, especially on the franchise tag next year. So, I think that it's still a very fluid situation with George because we don't know if he's going to be demanding a new contract this offseason. We don't know what the Steelers' feelings are on him necessarily in terms of trading him away. We don't know how he plays this year. There's a lot of unknowns when it comes to the George Pickens situation. So we'll keep our eye on it this offseason for sure, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on him next year as he is currently slated to be this team's number 2 wideout. And one of the best number 2s in the entire league, by the way. So I think he's going to be a monster on inside fades from Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers loves throwing those fades, man. Back shoulder. George Pickens with his acrobatic catchability, I think is just tailor-made for that style of offense. And, of course, George, and then you got DK on the other side, just running whatever he's going to run. So I'm very excited for the future of this football team, guys. I think I have a much more optimistic view of what this team is going to do next year than a lot of Steelers fans do. I think a lot of people expect this team to be 8-9 or 9-8, maybe 10 wins and then losing the playoffs. I honestly think, I feel pretty good about this team's chances of winning a playoff game next year if Aaron Rodgers comes here. I don't know if that's an unpopular take or not, but I like the talent that is here in Pittsburgh right now. I have some level of belief that this offensive line is going to be better than it has been in years past. I hope they get the right running back in the draft. They finally have a dynamic wide receiver duo. I have hope for this football team moving forward, and maybe that's just because I'm an optimistic guy there, Jack, But no matter what happens, I have a feeling Aaron Rodgers will be deciding he is a Pittsburgh Steeler next week. Just makes too much sense. I mean, I'll scream it from the mountaintops.
It might be a debate where it's like it makes too much sense. It's like, yeah, you saw it.
But it's like, what else would he be waiting for at this point? The only other thing is the Vikings, right? The only other thing that you could be waiting for is the Vikings.
So I've said this in the office ad nauseum for the last, since free agency started.
Rodgers loves the attention.
He does.
He does. So why not just wait up until the draft? And this is just like a theory. Because what are they going to talk about every week on First Take? Where's Rodgers going to go? And he loves that. He loves being the top of the storyline.
I think he likes saying that he doesn't like it, but I think he
Oh, no,
does. He loves to go on
Sperry,
McAfee and
Sperry,
say how much he hates the
Sperry,
media.
Sperry. Aaron Rodgers, I said this earlier in the show, I don't think I've seen someone with a bigger ego than Aaron Rodgers. He eats this stuff up. He loves it. That's why it makes sense for him to come out in the show and announce that he's going to the Steelers. But if that doesn't happen, why would he be like, you know what? I'm just going to wait till the draft, because every day until the draft, it's about where's Aaron Rodgers going to go.
The only thing is he'd be missing the first round of OTAs if he waits until right before the draft.
I get it, but does he care?
But I think he should care. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, listen, man, he signs anytime April 20th or before. It doesn't affect the Steelers' schedule. Especially if he continues to work out with his receivers in DK Metcalf, Pat Freiermuth. I wouldn't be shocked if over this next weekend we find out George Pickens went to UCLA with DK Metcalf and they had a throwing session, and Muth was there, and Calvin was there, and Roman was there. It would not shock me in the slightest if we hear about another throwing session between Rodgers and either another Steelers receiver or a collection of Steelers receivers. It wouldn't shock me at all, because right now he's operating as if he's already a part of the team. He's talking with the team, it seems like every day, according to the reports. He's talking with the coaching staff, coming up with a plan for the offense. He's working out with Steelers players. It just seems it seems like he's already agreed. Yeah. It's just if he pulls the rug out from under the Steelers at this point, it's like, dude, you have given us so many signals that you're coming here, and now all of a sudden you're like, sorry, bro, I don't want to play for you?
That would also be a total Rodgers thing, though. Because
when has he ever done that, though? When has he ever led another team astray?
But I'm saying, that would be the ultimate shock of the year. And it would be Aaron Rodgers.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying.
It would be the shock of the year, but it would be shocking because of how much of an asshole it would make him look.
But he doesn't care. He just cares about the attention. That's what I'm saying. Sperry, that's what I'm saying. This is his MO. This is his playbook.
I mean,
I'm not saying he's going to do that. I think it makes too much sense. I can already see it. They're going to be like, Pat's going to be like, oh, guys, we get. I'm here.
Yeah, we got a special guest.
We got a special guest.
Yeah. That's exactly what he's going to do.
And everyone's going to be like, what? Who is it? What? Who is it? And then
there's going to be like a spotlight at the entrance of the stage.
The lights are going to dim.
Yeah, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers.
And then Aaron Rodgers walks out.
He's going to be wearing like a Pirates hat.
See it now.
And it's going to be like a Steelers t-shirt or like a zip up or some shit. He's going to come out there.
You got to remember, McAfee is a WWE guy.
He is a WWE guy.
He was literally in London on Monday for Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
He is a WWE guy through and through. I can see it now. He would, like a Aaron Rodgers WWE-esque entrance, lights go down, music starts blasting, Aaron Rodgers walks out, everyone goes crazy.
And by the way, that will be electric. All right, you can hate Aaron Rodgers' guts. That will be great showmanship if that's what they're doing, and I think that's what they're doing. It's either that or, Jack, that he announces he's going to the Steelers either next Monday or Tuesday to kind of get the fanfare and the reaction out of the way. Then he goes to the event and gets a hero's welcome from Pat McAfee. I could see either one happening.
I think the first one makes more sense, though, because that would be more of a reaction. He would get the reaction on Tuesday, but that shock factor reaction.
Yes.
Wednesday,
yes.
That would get a bigger.
But then there's going to be me watching the fucking live stream at my house that night, and I'm going to be shaking in my boots because I know that if Rodgers doesn't show up, there's nothing else for him to be waiting for. I'll probably watch it from the office next Wednesday. I'll probably I'll probably plan on being here late. Oh my God, dude, this is crazy. We are almost a month into free agency, and he is still going. Oh, there we go, $20. So that means 15 minutes, Jack. Start the clock. I don't know, but Gary Frank just put in 20. Well, now because we just hit it, so it's now 15 minutes, and now it starts the clock at 15. So Gary just bought us 15 more minutes. We were just about to wrap up, but Gary with the 20 gets him another raffle ticket for the Aaron Rodgers jersey. Hopefully, if he decides to go to the Steelers, and that buys us 15 minutes. Jack will put up the shot clock here, so. We will take your questions, and we will talk about whatever you guys want to talk about for 15 minutes here as we finish up today's show. Put in your questions at #Steelers in the chat, and Jack will get those questions up on screen when he sees good ones. So let's get this kind of impromptu mailbag going. I don't know, man. So we've got the live poll going here, Jack. Will Aaron Rodgers be at Pat McAfee's big night next Wednesday? 72% are saying yes. Big night But no, the event is literally called Big Night It's literally called that. Nope. That's not what they mean. 14 minutes to go here. If you got a question, use #Steelers down there in the live chat. We'll get your question up on screen. Or, of course, if you want to skip the line, you can super chat like my man Gary Frank here. Says, we should have signed Hubs. I think he means Hobbs, who ended up, I think, going to Green Bay. And the thing about Hobbs is that I think the Steelers are really doing their best right now to get as many comp picks as they can for next year. If they would have signed Hobbs, he meant Chubb. Oh, he meant Chubb. Okay, Cassie just let me know, just texted me. So he said we should have signed Chubb. I mean, Chubb was really bad last year, man. He was really bad. He was cooked, but it's another offseason coming off of that ACL. Maybe he gets better. I don't know. If they sign Nick Chubb, I would want him to be like a true power back because there's no questioning he's strong, especially in his lower half. But I just don't know if he has the breakaway speed he used to have that made him one of the best backs in football. So if you wanted to bring him in as a power back, I think he's more than capable of doing that. I just don't think he's capable of being a true number one anymore. And by the way, if you get Chubb, you're still drafting a running back. Jacob says, do you think we should trade back with the Texans or Chiefs or Bills? All those are possibilities, especially Texans and Chiefs, because they need offensive tackle help. And if there's a specific tackle that they like that's still available, like Josh Simmons, Calvin Banks, my guess is it would be Simmons. Case Keenum going to the Chicago Bears. Okay, so we have some quarterback news here. 2 bits of quarterback news. Joe Milton goes to the Cowboys, and then Case Keenum going to the Bears. It's a good backup for him. Good backup. But to answer your question, Jacob, yeah, all those are legitimate possibilities, especially Texans and Chiefs. I'm trying to think of who the Bills would trade up for. Maybe corner, maybe DT, but I don't know about the Bills. If you have an idea, Jacob, let us know in the chat. But Chiefs and Texans, definitely possibilities. DJ KJ says, what's your take on Adam Steele saying this team isn't going anywhere unless we get a superstar quarterback that will hide our weaknesses? What I'll say to that is the Eagles just won a Super Bowl with a limited quarterback. And some people might say, oh, Jalen Hurts is great. I mean, you look at quarterback rankings heading into last year before he got Saquon Barkley, a lot of people had him outside the top 10. And listen, Jalen's a good quarterback. I'm not trying to say he's not. He's athletic. He's accurate. He's got great touch down the field. And he's a great leader. And obviously, he works for the style of offense that they play there in Philly. But you take away Saquon Barkley, you can take away the Super Bowl MVP that Jalen Hurts won last year because they ain't making it there. He was terrible in the first 2 playoff games that they played last year against the Packers and the Rams. And, he did play very well in the Super Bowl. And, I'm not trying to say he's a bad quarterback. That's not what I'm saying. But he's not a superstar, all right? And people think he's a superstar because he won the Super Bowl. But really the superstar of that offense was Saquon Barkley, And Jalen Hurts isn't even the second best player on that offense. That's A.J. Brown. You can make an argument Jalen Hurts is like the fifth best player on that offense. So, the Steelers, the way it works in the league, DJ, is that if you don't have a superstar quarterback, you need to have a super complete roster. That's what happened with the Eagles last year. Great defense, great offense, complete roster, good coaching, all of it. All right? That's what the Steelers need to build. All right? Because there's no superstar quarterbacks available. You can hope you get one in the draft, but where the Steelers are drafting this year, the chances you get a legit superstar, very low. All right? So you have to go out and get a guy like Aaron Rodgers who can be a good game manager, not turn the football over, can still make some high-level throws in a pinch, and then you can have a great run game. This is why it's so important for the Steelers to get a dynamic running back. If they can get Genty, if they can get Hampton, they have to get their quote-unquote Saquon Barkley at running back because the Eagles were not a Super Bowl team before they got Saquon. And, the Steelers need to have a complete roster around Rodgers if they want any chance of winning a Super Bowl as well. So that's the vision, that's the plan, and hopefully Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin can deliver. We'll see if they do. Cole says, I just watched Aaron Rodgers' highlights today because I can't wait, but it kind of bored me a little bit. Why do you think it will be different in Pittsburgh if Rodgers had better weapons? And honestly, I'm not even sure if he will have better weapons here in Pittsburgh. I think the big difference, Cole, in what is going to happen with Rodgers this year in Pittsburgh if he comes here versus what was happening last year in New York is coaching structure. All right, Bill Belichick, the greatest head coach in the history of NFL football, said good players cannot overcome bad coaching. All right, so the Jets, they had Devontae Adams, they had Garrett Wilson, they had Breece Hall, they had some really good players on that team. Alan Lazard is a good player in an Aaron Rodgers offense too. They weren't lacking talent. They spent a first-round pick on a tackle. They had, on paper, it was a very talented offense. But the problem is Nathaniel Hackett is a fucking joke of an offensive coordinator, and he designed the worst design offense in football last year. And like Belichick says, good players can't overcome bad coaching, and if you have the worst offensive play caller in the league and your head coach gets fired in the middle of the year, that's just too much, man. And Aaron Rodgers is not good enough anymore to carry an NFL offense. He needs to be more of a trailer than a truck at this point in his career, where the roster is kind of helping him out more than he's helping out the roster. If he goes to a situation here in Pittsburgh where they've had a head coach here for almost 2 decades, where they have an offensive coordinator that's going into his second year and is well respected in the league, and he's got good weapons, I think that's the difference maker that could make Rodgers a success here in Pittsburgh when he wasn't one there in New York. Pat Lepla, my friend, thank you so much, Pat. One of the real ones here says, did we sign Aaron Rodgers? I haven't been on much. No, we did not. We have not signed Aaron Rodgers yet. And, it is frustrating and it's getting anxious at this point because it's like the Giants have been out of this thing for more than a week now. They signed Russell Wilson 2 Tuesdays from now. Over a week ago. Rodgers' only option has been the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he hasn't made it official. Now, he's been doing other things. He's been working out with Steelers players. He's been talking with coaches. The coaches feel really good about him coming to Pittsburgh for some reason. And I think that reason is he's going to announce it next week on the Pat McAfee show, whether that's at the Big Night Out or whether that's on one of his just regular shows during the day. I think the decision comes next week. Sam Pugh, my man, first ever Black Diamond on the channel, by the way, says if Milton only needed a 5th-round pick, I don't think we wanted him. I think they wanted him at their price. So there's 2 things here, Sam. I think the Steelers probably offered either a 5th or a 6th-round pick for him. I think that's around what his value is because he hasn't really done anything in the league. He played a couple preseason games last year where he looked pretty good, and then he played the Bills' backups last year where he looked pretty good, but it's not like he's an established starter that you trade like a day 2 or day 1 draft pick for. Like, he's still very much a projection, and you trade a day 3 pick for a projection. So I think the price tag is absolutely correct, 5th-round pick. But it sounds like Milton, and this is the second point here, he wanted to go to the Cowboys because his family is from Dallas, I think, and they are big Cowboys fans. So he wanted to go to Dallas. So this is very similar to the Justin Fields situation last year where he told the Bears, I want to go to the Steelers. And they took apparently a lower price tag to send him to the Steelers. It's a very similar situation here. So I think the Steelers were in on Joe Milton, but they weren't willing to pay the fourth or the fifth or the fourth or the third round pick that it would have taken to get him in the building. So that's where it's at. By the way, Milton wouldn't have been the starter for this team. It would have been Aaron Rodgers still if they would have got him. So, like, obviously the Steelers are only going to pay their price for a Joe Milton if they traded for him. $2 from my man Justin. Says, theory on why Wilson and Fields weren't the guys. Well, my theory is they just didn't think they were good enough. And I think we saw last year that they weren't. The Steelers' offense was not very good last year, especially against the great teams. And we heard Mike Tomlin talk about this at the league meetings this week. The sobering reality is that the Steelers were a good team. They were not an elite team last year. And the offense was really a big reason why, things kind of fizzled out. The defense had talent, and the defense was dominant to start this season, but then they ran out of gas at the end of the year because they were always on the field because the offense just couldn't do anything worth mentioning. Now, I think Russ did better than Fields, and I would have actually been okay with Wilson returning because I think the offensive line will be better than it was last year. I think the weapons for sure are already better with DK Metcalf in the building. I think that they're going to get a better running back than Najee Harris in the draft this year. There is reason to believe that this offense would have been better with Russell Wilson at quarterback if he would have returned than it was last year. But Fields was not very good at all last year. I know he went 4-2, but the defense was dominant and was the reason why they won those games. Fields still showed a lot of things that he needed to improve if he was ever going to be the legit franchise guy here in Pittsburgh. So the theory is they think Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, which, by the way, he is. All right, he is. Aaron Rodgers right now is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields based on what we saw from all of these quarterbacks last year, in my opinion. And as somebody that has watched every single snap that these three quarterbacks have taken, I think I'm a pretty good source to say that. Appreciate you, Justin, for the 2. We got 3 minutes. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, Gary, we're not gonna do any political stuff on the show. I appreciate the $5 super chat, my man. I know you're joking, but like we still don't want to put anything even remotely political up. Michael says, "Are you taking cornerback Will Johnson if he's there at 21?" I would. We will need an outside corner next year since Slay is on a 1-year deal. I don't disagree, Michael. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I would be fine with taking Jahdae Barron out of Texas. And I think I'd actually prefer Jahdae Barron over Will Johnson because with Will, you're sitting him for a year. With Jahdae, you can put him in the nickel and you can put him in the slot year 1. And then when Darius retires next offseason, you can make a decision as to what you want to do at corner. You have options. You can put Barron and keep him in the slot if he's really good this year, or you can transition him outside. So I think that would be a good one right there. But personally, I don't love the idea of Will Johnson, if I'm being completely honest with you, Michael. I get that you have to have a contingency plan down the line, but you can get one of those on day 2. You can get one of those guys maybe even early day 3. If you want somebody that's going to develop into eventual starter, that's more of day 2, early day 3 territory for me. With round 1, on day 1, you're taking a player, in my opinion, to be an impact right away. All right, you're trying to get somebody that's going to be on the field and is going to be an impact player for you right away as a rookie. That's what the goal is of a first-round pick. All right, especially if you're in a win-now mindset like the Steelers are. If the Steelers were rebuilding, I would think about it. Will Johnson's a great player, but he can't play in the slot. Darius Slay and Joey Porter Jr. can't play in the slot, and that's the defender that they still need on defense. So if I'm looking for a day 1 impact, I think I would pass up Will Johnson. Now, what I would do, Michael, is I would try to find a team that wants to trade up for Will Johnson and then trade down and get an additional draft pick. That's what I would like to do if Will Johnson is still available. Zachary says, what are your thoughts on round 1, Kenneth Grant, round 3, Singleton, round 5, Will Howard, round 6, any receiver, and any other picks depth? I'd be fine with it. Kenneth Grant's a good player, man. Good run defender, great size and athleticism, really high upside. Really like Kenneth Grant. If they take him in round 1 no problems with that whatsoever. And overall, I think that I would be perfectly fine. Where's your round 4 pick, though, man? I don't see a round 4 pick in there. So let me know who would you take in round 4 then, because the Steelers do have a round 4 pick at this point. So we got 15 seconds left. We'll probably take one more question here. Take one more question and then we'll skedaddle. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers signs sometime this weekend, but like I said, I think it's going to be next week at Big Night Out, man. Pat Lepla says, if we don't sign Rodgers, what are we going to start? What are we going to do? Start Mason. I think that Mason becomes a legitimate possibility if they don't get Rodgers. I will also say a trade for Kirk Cousins becomes possible, even though I wouldn't want them to do it. I think it does become possible if they don't get Rodgers. And then Ryan Tannehill is another possibility because Tannehill has been kind of sniffing around, seeing if there's any potential starting jobs that he could compete for. And I think he would love a chance to play for Arthur Smith again. So those are kind of the two names to watch out for. Maybe they decide to go with Mason if they don't get Rodgers. But I think they for sure draft a quarterback early if they don't get Rodgers. That sucks. I really hope that doesn't happen, but that's probably what they'll end up doing. They'll be pretty desperate at that point to get a future franchise quarterback if they don't have Rodgers. But I also think Kirk and I think Ryan Tannehill are two veteran options that they would consider at that point. All right, that'll be it for today's live program. Big shout out to Jack Ray for helping us out producing today's show. Had a lot of stuff. $2 super chat from Sam Pugh, by the way. We'll get to his before we say goodbye. What's up? Oh, that's right. Sam, sorry, man. You got an expletive in there. We can't show that on screen or we'll get demonetized. So he says, Colbert F this team up from 2018 to 2021. Colbert was terrible to finish his tenure here in Pittsburgh, plain simply. Omar has done a really good job, in my opinion. The one downside to Omar is he really botched the Brandon Ayuk situation. And if he doesn't get Rodgers, this will be another situation that he's botched. But Colbert, man, in the draft, he was awful during 2018 through 2021. No doubt about that. All right, that'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for all of your support. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, here we go, Steelers.